So let me give you my take on the opportunity zones. First, high level. An op zone used to be called an empowerment zone, enterprise zone. So since I started in the business, they're all inner city, low income neighborhoods, basically. And the word inner city was invented sometime in the 80s, and that replaced the word ghettos. So if you looked back and did a real estate investment without an op zone in the South Bronx or Harlem or parts of Brooklyn back in the 80s, you'd be very, very happy that you did. Now, there's a simple reason for that, which is that lower income communities have more upward value mobility in general than 57th and 5th. So, when you look at people that want to invest in trophy properties, you're talking the prime real estate of any downtown of any major city, your returns are naturally less. One, because 95% of the real estate investment community wants to be in a AAA credit area. So the closer you get in life to a AAA credit, the less the yield is. So that's a general philosophy. And I don't think anybody would disagree that if you invested in Harlem or the South Bronx, where I was in the 80s, you'd be thrilled now. Although with COVID, nobody's that thrilled, because that is the one thing that nobody saw coming, and it's not very easily to navigate around a pandemic. But real estate, they're not recreating dirt. And our fund is called the 100-mile fund because they're not making any more dirt 100 miles around New York City. Now, op zones are national, so from a personal perspective, you may want to be in a different area. But generally, I would say that my 40 years, I have seen more money made in low-income neighborhoods than in the higher net worth stabilized communities. So that's a macro statement about developing in inner cities, which, for lack of a better word, I like to call them emerging markets, but people don't think that that's a good word. I think it's an appropriate word, because all of these tertiary low-income cities, particularly under Biden now, I think are going to outperform your wealthier downtown communities. And since the word essential worker has become such a word, and a real word, down to the supermarket worker and the truck driver, personally, our investment strategy right now, frankly, for the past 4 years, even before the pandemic, was focusing on that essential worker. Old timer once told me, cater to the masses, eat with the classes. Cater to the classes, eat with the masses. So that's kind of the high level philosophy. Now, when you look around at some of the opportunity zones, obviously some are better than others. Some are closer to making the turn than others. Now, we did send out some materials to you, and we'll talk about specific deals, but I first want you to understand the high level. Now, second thing about opportunity zones is it's still a real estate deal. Okay, so it is all the fundamentals of a real estate deal. Now, you can either get in at the beginning when it's dirt or a vacant building and go ahead and take the risk of the construction cost. The alternative is to come in prior to the C of O, where you'll pay a little more, but you'll burn off construction and development risk. You'll still take lease up risk, because you have to come in before the C of O to qualify. All of this we can manage for you. Because we have full capability to be the developer for you and the leasing agent and manage the opportunity zone compliance. And so there's that aspect of it, which is a risk tolerance. Personally, to me, because I can do development, I can do construction, I can do marketing, I can handle managing either end of the risk. But you will pay up a little for a private developer to deliver you a pre TCO asset. So
okay, just to give you a sense of my preference, what really appeals to me about this is the possibility of taking some money out with a refinance.
Okay.
So
let me give you
focus on that.
All right. So let me give you an example. And yeah, that's the beauty of this program. If you were to buy a $50 million asset, all cash, right? Pre-C of O, of which we have a number of projects that can qualify. Some are dirt and some are vacant buildings, but we have some that are in construction. The beauty of it is that after you lease up and stabilize, which is 6 to 9 months after the TCO, you pretty much can pull out all your cash. So you've achieved your tax goals, and frankly, unlike most real estate developers, you won't need to max out on the refi because you won't have the pressure of third-party investors, right? Like typical real estate deal, the investors want their money back, and sometimes you don't get all your equity back from a refi. Because if you have a 70% construction loan, right? But if you're using your equity to replace the 70% construction loan and you have no third-party investors, you have the luxury of, if you invested 50, you pull out 40. So you leave 10 in. You'll pull that out on the next refi. You know, the beauty of real estate is you can keep refining in their tax-free events. And then obviously the last benefit is that if you sell it after a period of time, the sale itself is tax-free. Now, the same is true pretty much for the business side. You can use the money to start up a business, and then if you sell the business, you sell it tax-free, or if you refi the business, same holds true. So I think I've condensed the opportunity zone plan program. I think under Biden, it even gets better. It needed some tweaking.
Section 8 language that I've seen recently, does that improve? Are these Section 8 buildings?
No, I mean, they could be. Is there, Derek, is there a prohibition on using Section 8 buildings?
There's no prohibition. There's contemplation, I think would be the word, that they may modify the current guidelines to include that you have to have a low income component, is what I've been saying.
Oh, is that right? See, I don't like that. I think that ruins the property and it ruins the initiative. These communities have enough low income. They don't need more. So Roy, well, here's my view. And look, I'm a little bit old hippie, right? So I want to make the world a better place and I want to make money. And I believe that for these neighborhoods to improve, you have to bring in higher income and higher educated.
I'm with you on this.
Good, because look, like when I was in the South Bronx, the thing that brought crime down and education up was the kids that grew up in the for sale housing I built in the South Bronx, which was a war zone. But kids started seeing people in the whole neighborhood waking up and going to work. Right prior to that, in the 70s, all you had was junkies and hookers and burnt out buildings and crime. So when a kid woke up in the 70s, that's what he saw, that's what he became. When you look at the demographic of what happened in the South Bronx, the kid that was the kid of a sanitation worker who bought a house from me started to see his parents going to work and his neighbors going to work. And that's why those kids became lawyers and doctors and bankers. So the sociological and the economical test that Ed Koch put in place and that I implemented proved out. Crime went crazy way down, property values went crazy way up, graduation rates went crazy way up, and we made a lot of money, and that's all good for everybody. So, so to answer your question, Roy, I'm not a fan of bringing more Section 8 into a neighborhood that's filled with Section 8. I think as a taxpayer,
Billy, let me interrupt you for a second. MTC is opportunity zone, but it's got no component of Section 8, does it?
no, you see, first off, Section 8's a voucher program. So if our borrower on North Bergen wanted to bring in all Section 8 people with vouchers, he could. In fact, believe it or not, Section 8 pays more sometimes than market rate. But the project is not labeled Section 8. That used to be in the 70s and 80s. There were full Section 8 projects where the whole project was Section 8. In order to increase your value of your real estate, because Section 8, you don't want to be bound by that. You don't want to be labeled with it, even if it's half Section 8. You want the flexibility to raise rents as the market improves. And as you continue to raise rents over the year, you continue to refinance. So, all right, Roy, I think I gave you enough for you to ask me whatever questions you want. We could take as much money as you got and do with it whatever kind of a program, and we could guide you through the best way to do it is I can tell you what I would do if I had X dollars. I don't know what we're talking about as far as dollars, but
let's say we're talking 10.
Okay. So
Billy, let me back up a minute. Billy, hold on one second. Roy, are you familiar with the tax consequences of the opportunity zone, the 5-year, the 7-year rule, and the 10-year rule?
Well, we've talked about it, but perhaps in this context, now that we have a specific project in mind, maybe you can give me a sense of with a specific example of how it would work with real numbers.
If you invest in an opportunity zone, and I'm talking about the real estate, and you invest for 5 years, you get a 10% discount on the tax rate when you have to pay the tax in what is now 6 years. It was originally 7 years. There was a 7-year component that if you had kept it 7 years, instead of a 10% discount on the rate, it would have been a 15% discount. But since December 31st, 26 is when you have to pay the tax, you're not going to make the 7-year rule. So you get the 10% discount, pay the tax on the existing gain, the invested gain in 6 years. And then if you kept the property 10 years, any additional gain would be tax-free.
Right. So wait, hold on. 6 years, 10% discount of tax otherwise due today in 6 years. Is that calendar years or is it the 6th tax year following and how does it exactly work? Like if I sold something January 31st of this month, when do I have to pay the capital gains tax at a 90% of the capital gains?
It would be by December 31st, 2026.
That's 5 years, no?
Yeah, but what if he holds
6 years?
What if he holds the building for the 10-year term?
Well, but you still have to pay the tax on the existing invested gain by December 31st, 26.
So
and that's why you
that
can't
back.
get the 15% discount because you can't make the 7-year rule.
It's 21 now. What is that? 5 years or 6 years?
It's 5 years.
Well, I'm considering it's 5 years, but I'm considering it 6 because you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay,
it's 6
so
full years. You don't pay the tax until April of 2027.
And you'll have pulled your money out in a refi certainly by then. So you pay the tax from the refi.
And then any additional gain that you have over and above the invested amount would be tax-free if you keep the property more than 10 years.
Okay.
So Roy, let me go to your example.
That's the then current rate on capital gains at that point.
That's correct. I mean, keep in mind something else. And what we don't know, Roy, is what the new legislation is going to be with Biden. He's talked about keeping opportunity zones and so forth. He may even enhance it. So I don't know what's going to happen between now and then with respect to capital gains rates. As you know, one of the things he's proposed is to get rid of long-term capital gains for anybody making more than $1 million. Whether or not that comes to fruition or not, who knows? And who knows, if there will be a Democrat in the office in 2027.
So if I can go back to answer your question about $10 million, and I think we have projects that fit either or of these. You could either do a $10 million project, pre-TCO finished, and then lease it up and then refinance it. Or you could buy a $50 million building, or let's say a $40 million building, and you put up 10 of equity, you borrow 30. Again, you then lease up and you refi, and you pull out at least half, maybe all of your cash. So there's two ways of going about it, which is one, all cash, two, with leverage. Obviously, the building with leverage on absolute dollar basis has more potential appreciation because a $40 million asset, if it appreciates at 10% a year, appreciates $4 million a year. And a $10 million asset with no leverage, appreciating at the same 10% is $1 million a year. So those are two basic things. Me, I'd be somewhere down the middle. I think I'd do half cash, half debt. That's me because I'm conservative. And also I believe in the 10-year hold, because that's really what you're in here for. Is in 10 years these neighborhoods change, so, and a lot having to do with your investment and everybody else's. So that's that. You have a geographical issue, which is where do you want to be? We can make recommendations. And then you also have an issue of you could be part of a much, much bigger deal where you have less control, but you're part of a group that does $100 million project and there's four $10 million guys or girls that put up the op zone equity.
Okay. And can you explain to me your specific role in this and how do you guys make money and how are your incentives compared to my incentives?
Compensation is easy. It's fee based because we're not an opportunity zone. We're your manager, for lack of a better word. We're your specific fund manager for your specific op zone fund.
Okay.
Excuse me. So you would create an op zone entity, and we would be your staff. Depending on the size of the deal, would be depend on the size of the fee. It's usually a percentage of the size of the deal. We'd look for some upside on value we create.
Is it sorry, can you give me a typical example of what that is?
Let's say we're doing a $50 million deal with 10 million of or $40 million deal with 10 million of equity. That sounds like a good ratio. And if we're only handling the lease up period, so we've already done the somebody else or we have done the construction, we would get an administrative fee for the LLC to make sure you're in compliance with all of the op zone regs.
And what is that?
Truly, I haven't thought of it. I'm going to guess it's a couple of $100,000, 200,000 or 300,000 maybe. We're We then would get a property management fee that's 5% of the rents. And then we would get a lease up fee that's a month or two of the rents. And then we look for some upside after we make you a return of X. We get a 20% of the ups after you make X. That would usually be somewhere around 8% or 10%.
10% annualized or 10% total?
Annualized. So if we were into the asset for 40 and down the road you sold it for 60, right, over 10 years, and you only had your 10% in, your 10 million in, let's say for 3 years, it would be, the hurdle would be based on the 10 million for the 3 years. Once that's out, right? So you got anything over 10% for 3 years, call it 3 million. Anything over 3 million, we look to split 80-20, something like that.
What are the construction loan fees, construction loan rates in these for development in these neighborhoods, and what are the financing rates for these buildings?
Construction loans right now are going from 5 to 6%. But that won't matter to you because you won't be, unless you decide to do a ground up. You're going to get you'll have a lower basis because there'll be no developer profit, right? If you do either vacant building or ground up.
What is a developer profit on something like this?
If we were to build a $40 million building for you, it would be about 10%. That's, by the way, I should point out, that's what our fee would be to build the building for you. If somebody else took all the risk, they'd probably look to make more like 20%.
And take all risk in this context means they somehow secured the whole thing.
So yeah. So I know I got you as a buyer, right? I go out, I get the loan, I put my guarantee up, I put up the equity needed that the bank doesn't put up, and I pre-pack a deal with you to buy it at TCO. In that instance, I'm going to look to make 20%. Whereas if I'm only a fee-based developer and there is no construction loan because you're putting it up in equity, or if you either way, if you decide to put it up in equity, right? It's still a $40 million deal.
Okay, and when you say you here, this is not your regular. This is a different aspect of the deal than what we just talked about a moment ago, right? This is just the development costs.
This is
and then we basically get to the point where we would make the later deal. Is that correct?
Well, there's one of 2 or 3 ways. One is you could take the risk and we would manage it. And by the way, when I say take the risk, we could get a bonded GC. That costs a little more too. But, we can box the risk so that you are not exposed to cost overruns, etc. Your 2 basic risks.
What kinds of risks typically come into play in this? I mean, is there like...
All right.
Okay, got it.
So you got 2 basic risks in development. Building it on time, on budget, on schedule with the proper quality, right? And the proper product. And 2, renting it. So you got to build it, you got to rent it. And then you got to manage it. Management is pretty quantifiable, particularly on a new building, whether it be new building or newly gut rehab building. Lease up has a 10 to 20% swing depending on the market, depending on supply. I mean, the good news in these areas, they're usually undersupplied. So you are, we've got the buildings we're doing in Patterson are fully leased the day they're finished. So
Why is Patterson so interesting to you?
Because it's got nowhere to go but up. It's got nowhere to go but up.
And is there transit to Patterson?
Patterson has a train station.
That's right on Route 80. I see it right on the right side. There's all those factory buildings. Is that
Yeah, it's the third largest city in Jersey. It's got good transportation. 80 runs right through it. It's got a major hospital. It's got a community college downtown. It's one of the types of neighborhoods that is going to be a high targeted neighborhood for subsidies, government programs. Frankly, all we need to do is double the size of the police force, and if you bring crime down, the neighborhood goes up. A couple of things that all you need in all of these neighborhoods is to manage crime. Crime's managed two ways: good policing and gentrification. Gentrification is a bad word if you use it in front of the wrong people, but I say fuck you. What do you want to keep your fucking community down? I mean, that's the whole fucking thing about these communities. You need a mix of ethnicities and incomes, because if poor kids don't see people dressing up in suits or uniforms going to work, it perpetuates it. So I'm a proponent, and I'm a guy who's been in the woods, and my office was in the South Bronx in Harlem for 18 years. So yeah, and so that's the development side. Is we've got plenty of deals to. By the way, where are you?
Me personally, I'm in Upper West Side and Vermont.
So my point was you're in New York City now. Roy, you're in New York City?
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, the best thing would be is if you can come over one day. I don't know your feelings about being out, but we're cautious and whatnot.
No, I'm fine. That's all good. I would like to come out and have a look.
Because I think we take it to North Bergen, which might take more than 10 million, but we know our developer is a seller. It's a super property because it is right directly on. It's at the North Bergen light rail stop, which is 3 minutes to the ferry, and I don't know, Omar, is it 6 or 8 minutes to the path?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what my particular need is, even more than the return, get the capital out quickly. If that was your if that was the priority in creating deals, to get
well, listen. Here's the good news. Here's the good news. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA are throwing such ridiculous terms. I mean, ridiculous terms. Derek, what are they quoting these days with our fucking government money?
You can probably get something in the low to mid 3.
I mean, it's L plus 150, 200. I mean, the HUD right now has got a 2 handle on like 2.9s to 3.
2.19% you can get down to with the new building.
The pro and con, though, for what Roy's going to want to do is that's going to lock you into a long-term, hold. You can't have the multiple refis typically in those type of situations.
He should really look at Bitkoff's Hackensack. That's teed up, and if we get any closer on the deed, that's ready to go day one.
All right, and let's say I sell something today. What are the chances that you would have a project for me in 6 months? Is that the number, Alan? You have 6 months, or to the end of the year?
Yeah, you have 6 months. You have 6 months to invest the money.
Well, listen, but you could tie one up today.
What do you mean?
Today we've got a couple. Look, I can't predict 6 months from now. I know today, if you told me, Billy, you got to park 10 million for me. I know that we could put you into contract on a deal that doesn't close for 6 months.
Easier if it's 20 million?
Certainly gets easier.
All right. I get the idea. Why not? you think
I
about,
think the best, by the way, the best is for you to get in a car with me and or one of the guys, or follow us or whatever. We've got a little one in Hackensack that's like 5 or 6 million. That's a beautiful brand new building where all you got to do is find a tenant. We can take you by North Bergen. We can then take you by Patterson, and you can do all that within 2 hours.
okay. All right. So my again, with my priority being getting the liquidity, that's really, for at least a chunk of this, that's what I need.
All right. Well, look at
just to give you a sense of my reasoning on this, I have some debt right now that's at 5 and a little over 5% that I'd like to retire. Okay, so that's my first priority, is getting rid of that.
Okay. What's that secured by the way?
Bitcoin.
Oh, I don't know anybody lends against Bitcoin, but
I do.
Okay. Oh, actually, I might know somebody, but he'll be more expensive.
They won't do it at the rates I have. I have a very good lender.
All right. Well, listen. The one thing that's easily verifiable is that there is, for lack of a more technical term, a shit fucking ton of money looking to refinance anything that's got a body in it. The permanent mortgage lenders are about as aggressive as ever, and we're plugged into everything. And as Eric was mentioning, the lower the rate, it does come with some bells and whistles. But again, I think you want to look at a 10-year hold, so we can decide later whether to trade flexibility and optionality for rate. Because obviously, if you want to be able to refi every 3 years, which some people do, you might not go with the lowest rate. So we can explore.
I think you have a sense for what I'm interested in. Why don't you guys huddle up and see if you can come up with a proposal for 10 million or 20 million, okay? And when you might need it, when you think the right time to be doing this.
Okay. I think the better thing, if it'll help us, is if we can, we need to tailor it to the project.
Okay.
So like if you go on property at North Bergen and say, I love this.
I have no ability to evaluate. I would like to come.
Oh, no, not true. Not true. Look at real estate is a touchy feely thing. Okay. You will feel something.
Track record in real estate.
Yeah.
Whatever the touch and feel that I have is not something that I want to be basing it on. So I would rely on someone else to do that for me, which is you.
Roy, I
could do it all.
Billy, hold on. Roy, I completely understand what you're saying, but I think it's worth your while
to take
a ride.
I'm coming. I'm going to come for sure. Okay. But I just want your recommendations, given what I've just told you.
Well, the ones I'm going to show you have my recommendation, right? That makes it easier.
But there's a world of difference between the different properties, and you should take a look at it.
All right. When are you guys available?
I don't know, guys. Figure that out for me.
All right, because today's Monday. I actually have. This is not the greatest week for me. I may have to stay one more week in New York to do this, so we might be talking about the next week, or I'll come back from Vermont.
Well, if you want to do Fridays are usually good.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see what I can do on Friday.
Roy, any news on 40 Riverside?
No. Well, they're presenting to the board of this. Supposedly, it's some sort of foundation. They're presenting it to the board at the end of this month, and I presume that I'm going to get a bid at that point. Zachary, stop. I'm on
Okay, so all right.
By the way, do you need any help on that? I mean, I've heard some saga about that thing. If anything we can do to help,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I have like a $12 million building that I was going to do a gut renovate. It's like one of the greatest houses in New York. It's right on Riverside Drive on the corner. It's spectacular. It should have been a $30 million sale renovated. And I bought it for around 12 in 2014. And then my partner who was going to do it for me was unfortunately killed in a construction accident. And then I ended up finishing the building that I'm in right now, that I'm living in, and the building is still in the state that it is. It's like semi-renovated. It's like we live there beautifully for 3 or 4 years, but it's not a triple mint, and it needs a triple mint renovation to command that kind of price. So basically, I'm selling it pre-renovation, and it probably needs a $7 to $10 million, which would be incredible, and probably 5 to 7 would do it in a pretty good way.
Well, listen, all I would tell you is hang tight and wait till this time next year to put it on the market. I would take it off the market. Unfortunately, I predicted this in 2014. I predicted without the pandemic in 14. Obviously, I didn't know there was a pandemic, that there was going to be a 30% correction in Manhattan real estate due to oversupply. Because I forgot what year it was. I think it was between 13 and 14. Housing starts jumped from 15,000 to 65,000 in Manhattan, and you just can't have that oversupply. So,
yeah. I mean, what makes it interesting post-pandemic, I suppose, is that it's a single family, and it used to be I was in competition with 57th Street and Central Park South, but now there's a bunch of people that I don't think want that anymore. So,
what's your cross street?
Amazing house.
Roy, how many square feet is the house, Roy?
10-7.
All right. Well, listen, I assume you've already spoke to most of the super luxury brokers, but we have over the years worked on a number of single family townhouses, and we have the guys that specialize in that I can get some consult for you.
Roy's got those too.
But I think that if you can bear it, I would just pull it off the market completely.
Well, that's what I did. I'm showing it like one.
By the way,
shows up.
And maybe there's a midpoint, and I'll come over if you want.
I'd appreciate that if you have another idea.
I assume I'm a contractor first and foremost. I'm a developer second. I'm a marketing guy third. So I'm happy to come over because there may be a midpoint. Like being a real estate developer, which is what you are in that house, by the way, is a matter of selecting what do you do with money. You can make everything, gold mint and still not hit the mark and overspend, or you can underspend. But I'll take a trip in to see you, and it'll cost you a lunch. Are you allowed to eat, by the way, are you allowed to you're not even allowed to eat inside, are you?
Oh, around here, no, but we could get some sandwiches, and it has one of the greatest terraces I've ever seen in New York, overlooking the park.
As long as you got a bottle of Chardonnay,
I can see Patterson from my window. Right over the I have the best sunsets you've ever seen in New York.
That was like Sarah Palin. I can see Russia from my window.
On good days, I can see that too. And especially if I look toward Gracie Mansion.
All right, guys. So sounds like we need a little trip planned. Show Roy some stuff, and we need to send me in to see Roy one day.
Okay.
A couple of things before you go. Yeah. Roy, have you Googled Billy at all?
I have not, but I'm
okay. I'd like you to do that. William Procida. You're going to get a kick out of the Google, but Google him. Two, I don't need Billy for this, but you want to discuss the Opportunity Zone business?
Yes, please.
Okay, so everybody else.
I'll tell you what, I got to get on the road. Okay.
Thank you,
Roy.
so much
I look forward to seeing you. And by the way, Roy, if you just look at our website too, Procida.com.
Yep.
You'll get plenty of background and of course, by the way, if you're interested in investing in our fund, love to talk to you about that too.
Okay,
we don't make.
Can I have 30 seconds on that?
Yeah.
Just tell me, give me the 30 seconds on the fund versus the specific.
All right. Well, Derek, send them our management report and all that good stuff. We're a
Yes, I
simple
have
brain dead. We're a simple brain dead fund.
It's an
Called the
option.
100 Mile Fund. We make predominantly loans on real estate 100 miles from our office. Our average return over 5 years is in the 11 range.
Oh, I lost you.
Yeah, Billy, we lost you.
Are you on mute? Billy, are you on mute? I lost audio.
Yeah, so did I. Billy,
Am I there?
Yeah, you're back.
yeah, now I got back. Now you're back.
Okay, yeah. I got a call. I didn't realize when a call comes in, it mutes you. Okay, so we had when leverage was aggressive and the market was right, we had hit 3 years of over 14% returns. We went very conservative after 15. So in the last 3 years, we've been in the high 8s, and this year we're 9.5.
Last year we were
That's
11.5, Billy.
Really?
Yep. This year we're at 9.5 to 10.
Okay.
Why didn't I know that?
And this gets the same treatment as the op zone investment?
No.
No.
This is just a regular.
No,
Straight, yeah.
unfortunately, the good news is we've in 20 years I've never missed my minimum dividend of 7.5. The good news, Roy, is I've never missed a quarterly dividend in 20 years.
Okay. What's the liquidity of this?
Liquidity is the redemptions are 1 year. Every year in September, we you put in a redemption request, and then we haven't missed a redemption request. The redemption gets done in January.
90% in January. The other 10% after the certified audit.
Okay. And will anyone lend against these partnership interests?
Not that I'm
No.
aware of.
I would say no. So we're really a fixed income. I mean, you'll never. I don't think you'll ever. I got 5 million of my money in the fund. That's 5 out of 7.5 of my world. So I wouldn't expect anybody to do that kind of concentration. But basically, I don't invest in the stock market at all. I do not have a stockbroker. Never had in 40 years. So it's basically whatever I want to do with my money, I do with my investors' money. And those numbers are net, by the way. The 11.5 and the 9.5 are net numbers. We do good. We do good by our clients. We do good by our communities we do business in, and we do good by our investors.
All right, Billy.
Thank you.
We thank you. And